So we'll bring our meeting to order. Today we're meeting on July 17th at 11 a.m. in our offices here in Sacramento. We are now in open session. The board will accept public comment on any agenda item or any other matter under its jurisdiction. Speakers are asked to limit their testimony to approximately 5 minutes on each agenda item and on any other matter under its jurisdiction not listed on the agenda. The order of the agenda may be changed to accommodate the board or the public. With that, having opened our session, I'll do the roll call. Chair Michael Allen, present.
Laura Kent-Monning, present.
Member Mike Eng, present.
And Robert Wachowski, present.
Okay. All board members are present, so we'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is approval of our minutes of June 19th, 2024. I assume all of you have been able to read it and review it for accuracy, so could I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we unanimously approved our minutes. So with that, I'll move to my report as chair. First of all, I'm very pleased to announce that we resolved over 1,051 cases closed for this month since our last meeting. And of those 1,051, 1,037 were done on our new system. Not so new anymore, but we're all getting used to it still, CAMS. And only 14 legacy cases were done under the prior system that we used. I'll keep my report short. I was really, I consider myself privileged yesterday to go to the, it was the summit for the California department heads and for the Newsom administration. And what really pleased me was not only to see the type of folks were there and the ambition and the energy that was in the room, but that basically, we had presentations from cabinet members and other secretaries, undersecretaries, and a really nice presentation by the First Lady of California, who talked about the farm to schools program and nutrition and the importance of nutrition. Really nice presentation. And then Governor Newsom came in, noticed that this was a new building he had never been in, marveled at how nice it was, and he gave a very inspirational address regarding the fact that we're now over 6 years in on his administration, that we only have 2 years remaining. And he said that, he felt that we've done a lot under his administration policy-wise to move California forward. We've implemented a lot of positive things, but he was really asking all the folks in the room to redouble our efforts to do more for the people of California during the remaining time we had, and because it's one thing to do policy, it's another to have actual tangible effects for the public. And so I know in my own mind, I know all the board members feel the same way. Just the successful ongoing completion and working with the CAMS project is something we should all be very proud of as an organization. And the one story he told, which really so much resonated with me, is he talked about how some people go to Death Valley and all they really see is they take it literally. They see the death, no water, everything is dry and dusty. And he was talking about yet when a major rainstorm comes in, and it does rain in the Death Valley, all the seeds that have been there lying there for years, they start blooming, flowers come forward. And he was talking about the seeds are basically the potentialities that we do, that like in all our work here for the state and for the people of California, a lot of us have ideas, initiatives, things we want to see accomplished, and they're like seeds. Sometimes they bloom, but sometimes they don't. But the important thing is to basically realize that if you can't dream it, you can't make it a reality. And that was really his message to the group in terms of being ambitious in our last couple of years in terms of what we can do for the people of California. So for me, I just was really grateful that I could be in the room and be part of that meeting. It was really positive. So that's my report, other than the fact that I really appreciate all levels of the organization. Everyone's job is so important. It all comes together, and just even if some part of the organization doesn't function well, it affects all of us. And I'm grateful for all of you and for my board members, and I thank you. And I will now turn it over to my vice chair.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I have no report, but just want to thank you for sharing that positive insights from your meeting yesterday and for representing our agency. Thank you.
I have nothing to report, but I will redouble my efforts according to the guidance that the governor have given us on everything I approach with CUIAB.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to report, but iterate two things. Number one, a tremendous appreciation for the staff and all the work that's being done to make our work possible. And number two, that it's really fantastic to be associated with a state that has innovation and creativity and motivation at its forefront. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we're now at the part of the agenda where we take public comment. Is there anyone here in the room or online that would like to make a public comment?
Chair Allen, I have no hands raised for public comment at this time.
Okay. Given that we have no public comment, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is our Chief Judge Kutry, Executive Director, who'll give us an update on the state of the agency and field workload.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair Allen and board members. I'll begin with some field office updates and then provide you with some other updates that have occurred since the last meeting. June was a remarkable month for us. After 49 straight months of elevated incoming appeals, it was the second consecutive month of equal to or lower than pre-pandemic baseline in appeal transmittals. It was about 3.5% below February of 2020. Staffing in June is usually a little lower because of the summer months, and that was no different this year, but the field offices nonetheless closed over 24,000 cases across all programs, 22,254 of which were in unemployment or PUA. It was another opportunity to continue to close the gap in our appeals backlog, and we did that by reducing the open inventory by over 4,200 cases. Our case age dropped as a result from 86 to just under 84 days, which is still a significant improvement compared to the 144 days just 12 months ago. National time lapse, or national case aging rather, remains high at 226 days. And I often report on the movement that CAMS allows us within our system and among our offices, and we moved to just over 3,000 cases since the last meeting. 2 weeks ago, I was in Rhode Island for the National Association of Unemployment Appeals Professionals Conference, which is co-sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor. That was an opportunity to meet with U.S. DOL representatives and high-ranking staff and member states all across the country to evaluate trends and best practices. Nationally, it was clear that unemployment appeal agencies are still slowly recovering from the pandemic appeal backlog. Much of this is compounded by the fact that many state UI agencies on the administration side are still processing pandemic program benefits. So as a result, the appeals therefrom are persistent. I reported last year that there may be some substantive changes to DOL's quality review scoring. None were released at this meeting, but they're still in discussion. So we had some robust discussion about those criteria and whether or not there should be additional input before they're implemented. Typically, those criteria are released at the National Appeals Review Conference, the last of which was this year in April. Those usually occur every 3 years, but having a more frequent meeting over the next couple years is being contemplated because of the large gap due to the pandemic. So I'll continue to share any developments there. We met as groups and breakout sessions to talk about the national scoring from that last conference and to talk about possibilities of expanding due process criteria within the existing framework. A very common topic of discussion was California's appeals modernization project. Because we are the largest state in the UI program and appeals, all the states wanted to know how we are doing things. So I reported at the last meeting that we were very much underway on our modernization project, but I had a lot more successes to report to the group at this meeting, as well as some ongoing challenges. So all we're eager to hear how a state our size modernizes its appeals program. Those discussions are continuing. We've been pinged repeatedly after the meeting and since the meeting to talk about some of the things that we're leveraging for our system. U.S. Department of Labor is very happy to hear about our developments. I'm very happy to hear about our progress in reducing our backlog, and also very grateful for our sharing of things that went well and things that were challenging during our rollout. So those discussions will continue. We will resume meeting with GOR Region 6, the West Coast states, throughout the year. Our next meeting should be next month to further hone in on our particular progress and EDD's particular progress in managing its pandemic backlogs and seeing that caseload through. On the security front, we had 2 incidents in June where CHP became involved due to general threats to field offices. I'm happy to report that both of those have stopped. And so the CHP has been a very active partner anytime this happens, and this was no exception. They came once called, and they helped us through the situation with no negative impacts that are lasting. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I'll make a comment and then I'll turn it over to our other board members. I just want to say that, because the theme yesterday, a lot of it was about innovation and basically taking risks and making sure that you move things forward so that we can improve things for the people of California. I really started thinking more about CAMs because I experienced it. We all experienced it in different ways with our part of doing it. But really, if you really think about it, when organizations basically have to do something simultaneously, stay with the status quo system, and then transition over to a new system, I must imagine it impacts everybody in the organization in different ways, And so, to me, I guess I'm just kind of celebrating the fact that, and I realize sometimes when we sit here, we might be delusional about how smooth it goes in terms of that transition. But just what a sacrifice it is for everybody to try to continue to do what they've been doing normally for their jobs, but then be transitioning to a whole new system, and yet it feeling fairly seamless on the surface, at least. It's been what it takes 16 months, 18 months. How long did it? Right around there. Yeah. Anyway, just a big thank you because it's on my mind because there was so much of discussion regarding innovation yesterday at the conference. So I'll turn it over to my board members.
Thank you, Chair Allen. No questions, just thank you for representing our agency in Rhode Island at the conference and for sharing our experiences and the incredible work of everyone at our agency. From the moment I began this job, March 4th of 2020, I witnessed our whole agency going from in-person hearings to telephonic very quickly, which was a huge lift, and then now also having CAMs as an entirely new modern way of doing all of our cases and having interface from the public. So it is, I think, important to step back and take note of these huge things that we've accomplished as an agency and the innovation and hard work behind it. So thanks for representing our agency with the conference, and thanks to everyone who has made it so that we have these things to report out.
Bring.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I went to my optometrist and my eye doctor to have my eyeglasses changed for the 4th time in about 5 years. And I was lamenting that fact, and he said to me, well, you must do work for an organization that's led by someone that has great vision. And I think that's really true as the leader along with the team. Your team, you have great vision, and thank you for representing. I believe this is the 2nd time in a row that you've represented CUIAB at the national conference. Is that true? And really appreciate that. You indicated that there were some breakout groups and there was some discussion on due process.
So the discussion centered around the existing 30-some criteria that are used in quality review scoring. And currently, a handful of those are considered due process criteria. So if you miss the mark on that, you would fail the hearing score.
Okay.
They're considering adding between 2 and 3 more of those. So there will be a little bit more stringent scoring that is done at the state and the U.S. Department of Labor level.
Well, just as it's been said that there's no free lunch, there's no free gratuitous comment about your work. If it's possible, I'm not sure if you have time to do it, but maybe a summary of some of the things that you got out of the breakout session. And is there a national trend as far as what agencies feel they might be doing with less money? Should there be less money allocated by states or federal government in the year to come?
We didn't get into specifics on budget. The folks that were present at the meeting weren't necessarily prepared to let us know how the next fiscal year budget would shake out at the federal level. But I will say that we are accustomed to ebbs and flows in terms of federal and state funding. So there was a lot of talk about strategies that you might utilize in terms of if funding goes down. Can you maximize your staff efforts, your judges' efforts? And so we do brainstorm about that. How do we conduct hearings more efficiently? How do we utilize technology and leverage that to increase the public service element? Can we utilize technology to do such things as enhanced mailing or use portals where mailing is not necessary? So there was a very robust discussion about that, particularly in terms of modernization efforts. I left there feeling like we are in a really good place nationally in terms of our modernization, and that's only been confirmed since the meeting because we're repeatedly requested to speak on those in terms of the region and by individual states.
Thank you.
Wojciechowski.
And I guess my follow-up on our region here is, are other states modernizing their process, or are they still having hearings in person, or is there a connection, a nexus between the way that we're doing things here and the efficiencies, or did we just get lucky?
No, many states are modernizing. Few had modernized before we did. In terms of having an active portal and a digital case management system, that's really what I mean by modernizing.
Right.
So not many had. There were not a lot of opportunities to learn from other DOL audience members. So when we decided to go on a fully cloud-based platform, many have not even considered all of the elements there. I know that the U.S. Department of Labor would love there to have been an off-the-shelf product that all could leverage. But the reality, and that's been acknowledged at 2 conferences in a row, that nothing like that really exists right now. So instead, they're taking best practices from across the country and trying to help much smaller states leverage those in developing their programs. And I'll remind the board that CUIAB undertook this program on its own without the benefit of having EDD Next already in existence, whereas many of the smaller jurisdictions have a UI department that is modernized already. So for them, they can leverage that effort. But as we know, EDD Next is going to take some time to be released. And so at this point, we went ahead and for our parties and constituents, we decided to modernize first. So a little bit different, but still lots of lessons that we can share with them. And I expect that other agencies will find better ways to do things over the next coming years as they modernize, and they in turn will share with us, and we may be able to leverage that as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Like I've mentioned before, our system is just a little bit smaller than that which would service France or Germany. So people need to remember how big we are. So our supervising appellate judge is here, Rebecca Bach, with her report. And it's nice to see your smiling face, and we're ready for your report.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and I'm actually quite excited to give my report this month. So to go over some of the Department Labor guidelines for second level appeals, in order to meet the guidelines, we're supposed to close 50% of our cases in 45 days and 80% of our cases in 75 days. For June, we closed 84.3% of our cases in 45 days, making the Department of Labor, the year-to-date total 57.2, so above the guidelines. And in June, we closed 95.6% of our cases in 75 days, making our year-to-date 91.9, also well above the guidelines. And so, very pleased to make that report. I think that it's reflective of the really good work that's been occurring in appellate operations and with the board, but also in large part to the success of the CAMS system, the California Appeals Modernization System, which I think is showing us a positive and tangible effect for the public.
Thank you. So I'd ask our board members, any questions?
No questions, just thank you. This is a fantastic data set, and it is exciting to see, and I agree with you that it's a combination of great work done at AO and also what CAMS can do for us, and I think it sheds light and hope on the continuing improving numbers of the field as well. So this is great, and everyone should take a moment to recognize that this is really good news and that we're headed in a great direction. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that the qualitative changes also have been hand in hand with the quantitative changes as well, and the fact that your leadership has resulted in what I see as a very to bring the cases to bear that truly reflect our mission statement. And I think that's really something that's very important to me, and I've seen that change during that year tenure here, as brief as it has been. Thank you.
Yeah, 22 days for our pending cases. But I have a question. I have on the trends that we get, the FI trends, I'm looking at the last page, and I'm particularly interested in 45 days. Because I went back to 2021, and it seemed like in 2021, in September, October, November, December, January, February, March of that year, we were at 89%, 95.7%, 87%, that we would get cases completed within 45 days. And then you just pick a time, the beginning of this year where you go, let's see where I am. Well, we were in April, we were at 28% and 62%. And you go back to the last fiscal year, let's say August, September, we're in 42%, 43%, 49%. Sort of, it reminds me of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride down at Disneyland. So I understand part of the CAM's efficiency that would bring that up to 97%. But how do we explain back in 2021 the division getting so many cases completed in 45 days at the 90% level?
Well, I think that
I mean, just looking at the 45-day level, because that seems to be, that's a tough nut.
Light on that based on field operations statistics. So in early 2020, when the unemployment rate spiked, it took quite some time for us to feel the result of that. Even towards the end of 2020, things were moving slower than expected in terms of incoming appeals. Doubly so for AO. There just weren't a lot of cases going to AO right away. And then at the end of 2020 and early 2021, we saw the wave of ID cases come in. And a lot of those were not appealed because they were single-party appeals, and the prevailing party had no further issue with the case. So a lot of those resulted in low months of appeal rate to the second level. Combine that with the need to borrow resources from appellate operations to assist field operations, we were doing a balancing act at that time, which we've sort of been doing since. I mean, we're constantly having to exchange resources to try to buoy each other. So I think that helps explain a lot of what's going on with the fluctuations. But I think over the last 2 years, the second level appeal rate has really stabilized. It's more of what we anticipated it would be. And that could change again depending on what type of workload we get next. It was the big outlier were the ID appeals, of which we received hundreds of thousands of them. And those are single-party cases for the most part.
Would it be safe to say that because of the CAM system and the efficiencies that we've learned, notwithstanding another pandemic, we've risen the floor about how quickly appellate division turns over cases or addresses cases?
yes, I think so. Yes.
So while somebody, a skeptic, could, not that I'm a skeptic, but you could look at, April, we were at 28.7% of our cases were done in 45 days, 62% last month, or in May, and now we're up to 84. We sort of just went boom, boom, boom. And improvement, I mean, I think every agency, the governor would love every agency showing that type of efficiency in 3 months. But you think that the 84 is more the norm now?
Yeah. I think that some of the numbers are also reflective of the legacy cases we were working through. And this month, as Chair Allen pointed out, we only had 14 legacy cases to close, which I'm finding tend to be older CAMS cases due to great operation of the CAM system. So yeah, I think the floor has changed for second level review.
Now, Legacy has developed a secondary meeting within CUIAB when we get one of those old cases. No more questions.
Yeah, just a final observation. In at least in my view, with the appellate judges and this board, you really serve as a great resource to us and help. I know that in some of the more difficult, complicated situations, you've been really helpful for all of us who work on these cases. So I didn't want to have that go unnoted. That you're very appreciated and quite a resource for us. And thank you. Having said that, we'll move on to Mr. Jefferson Willoughby, who is our Chief Information Officer and will give us a report. So take it away.
Good morning, Chair Allen, members of the board. The IT team is working feverishly with about 6 weeks to go in our stabilization effort, testing vendor deliverables, noting any defects, and if any are found, we send those back to the vendor for resolution. So that iterative cycle, not every software deliverable from a developer passes muster on the first try. So it is very iterative, and sometimes that makes it a little more difficult for us to pin down exact dates when elements of this contract, for instance, are going to be showing up in production. That said, we do have a fairly narrow window of opportunity here to get those deliverables in working fashion from the stabilization vendor. So by the time we meet next, I should have good news on some pretty major functional releases, including improved scheduling and our ability to get cases put together in the office. So a lot of field office improvements in terms of hearing notice packets and other correspondence is going on, and it's all part of making us more effective from the moment we get information to the time we notify folks that there's going to be a hearing to the time that we hold a hearing. So in news of what has IT done for me lately, this last weekend our CAMS platform is built on a vendor that we buy software as a service from. There was a major move to a more secure government-only cloud that the teams worked on testing over the weekend to make sure that there were no interruptions in service. And I'm obviously happy to say, having a 2.5 days worth of work behind us now without any major CAMS interruptions, that went very smoothly. So again, under the hood, working on the engine, trying to get things done and making sure that they're stable when we hit the ground on Monday morning. If I haven't mentioned language access recently, and I think I have, we are just waiting for the budget to be reopened, and we'll be able to make that small software procurement that will allow us to get simplified and traditional Chinese out on the portal and in our printed documents. The set that we had from about 10 years ago simply was not rendering correctly, so it seems trivial. It's not a huge thing, but it will be for folks who need that set of languages on the public portal. So we're looking forward to that. It will be within, I say days, but through the procurement process, we'll have it put in the day after we're able to make procurements. So those are my reports for this month, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Well, I'll turn it over to our board members.
No questions. Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Chief Willoughby. I did have a couple of questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the CAMS vendor will be departing at the end of August or close to that, and
Correct.
that the Department of Technology Assistance also has a couple of weeks left or a month left.
They're one and the same. The stabilization vendor is the Department of Technology Engagement, So those two things both end at the end of September. I will note that even though their deliverables will be due to us by the end of that date, that does not mean that the end of that iterative process is fully complete. They've committed to making
Yeah.
sure that what they give us works. So if for any reason there happens to be something that doesn't meet our expectation, they'll be available to consult with us.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the addition of the recuse button has not gone unnoticed. I believe it had gone through some iterations, and thank you for bringing that to our, working on that, Becky. And I know that that was considered relatively a smaller detail, but I know that there were about how many asks are there left in the system? How many requests for modification are there left that need to be resolved?
I'll say large, maybe 5 or fewer. Smaller, probably 20 to 30. And those are being actually worked on from both ends of the list. And I say that the vendor is working on a full set, and the ones that are now experienced set of developers that we have working here are working on some of those as well. So we're sort of nibbling away at both ends of that. It helps us get better acquainted with all of the intricacies of working in the system. We've made some great hires over the past couple of years who are developers in their own right in this system. So it's a great opportunity for us to look at that list and say, you know, I think we could do that. And we've done so. So that list will shrink accordingly in fairly short order. We'll see the deliverables from this probably through September, maybe October, depending on their training need and how big an impact they'll have to the organization.
So are you confident that those 5, I don't know what they are, but the 5 major deliverables will be accomplished during the lifetime of the vendor?
We've seen demos for 2 of them, and they look really, really good. So I think that at this point, I don't have any major resistance or inability to say yes on that. I am confident that we will hit the big ones.
If the past has been any, if past performance has been any indication. And my last question relates to the recent data breach, of which seem to be occurring like every week. AT&T released, I don't know, 100 million of their customers have very significant intrusions into the very specific minutia of their data. How is that a concern? That if a particular claimant or employer or party has their data breached, does that have any impact on our system?
So on the system proper, it may, but I would say it's potentially unlikely in that we take security of our systems very seriously every day. Our security officers are always remaining vigilant on how our information can be accessed. That said, could there be a hopscotch from a secondary breach into our systems? It is conceivable, but I have to think that it's fairly unlikely, and it would be probably compartmentalized to an individual user. We work with state and federal agencies to make sure that any actual known exploits are patched as quickly as possible, same day if we can. Again, really safeguarding the information that we have control over. We lose control when those secondary and further systems are breached. If someone is keeping information there that would allow them access, of course, we can't really control that. But hopefully it would be compartmentalized into that individual's case. Still an issue, but beyond our control.
Kind of makes our training a lot more important, being on the lookout for those fishing expeditions and et cetera, et cetera. So thank you. It's good to know that you're anticipating whatever those breaches might be and ability to react as fast as possible. Thank you for the report. Thank you.
Witkowski.
I'm once again comparing and contrasting the trends from the field office and the appellate office. So I'm and the tax rulings. So I know that we've and I want to make everybody comfortable asking a tax question or two. So we've moved CAMS now into the tax, the tax world has now moved into CAMS. Is that completed? I guess
It's not.
it's not. Okay, so big picture, it seems like the field office gets in this month 80 new cases. We got at the appellate level 2 cases, a little brief week. They closed 36 cases, we closed 4. Just little cases coming in. But the backlog in the field office is like 4,100 cases. Will any of those migrate into the CAM system, or is that just going to run its course? The new ones will come into the CAM system, but would those old cases move into CAMS?
They will. One of the things that I talked about, sort of working the outstanding requirements from both ends. And sadly, I guess, or unfortunately, or just expectedly, we also have folks on vacation during the summer who are assigned some of these tasks. But taking some of the tax documents, for instance, and the logic behind how the tax operation may differentiate itself from the field are under review. The documents are all being worked on by staff, right? So we're actually bringing some of that work into our internal developers. So we're not far away from tax. I'll just say there are some other items, and we're meeting with the tax branch at EDD regularly on how to make sure that the implementation that we put forth is in sync with what they are expecting. We can do everything that we need to do without changing a darn thing that faces them, but we are working actively with them to make sure that improvements to any or both of our systems would be acceptable. So that said, yes, those tax cases will migrate into CAMS. They're not quite there yet. And we have some work to do, some of which will be done by the vendor and some of which will be done by us. So that's when I say we're talking about these out months. That's going to be one of those elements that lands there.
So once a tax case is fully digitized, does it have the ability to move to other tax field judges or appellate judges like the regular cases on disability or unemployment case?
I want to nod here, but since I don't have the
Yes, it will be totally transferable digitally within all of our field office structures. So we could have an ALJ in San Diego hear a tax case tomorrow if that became necessary. Many of our petitioners are all over the state, so we can pick and choose which offices they're going to appear in, and we can quite literally transfer the case digitally almost instantaneously.
And final tax question, since I'm having so much fun here, is that what's your expectation with the vendor? I got the 6-week idea in my mind. Will the tax, have they done their work and we're just trying internally to get on board with having a new tax case that comes in tomorrow? I presume would go into CAMS, or maybe I'm wrong. No, not yet.
not yet.
Okay. Good. All right. That's an update. Just trying to, improve the efficiencies of all our operations.
Thank you, Member Witkowski. So I have a couple of questions, but they're fairly broad in nature. I was just curious, you're our chief information officer for our agency. How are there quarterly or annual meetings or semi-annual meetings of all the information officers of the state agencies to get together to compare notes and talk about trends?
So there are 2, maybe 3. They're sponsored events. The CIO Academy happens annually, usually in the beginning part of the year. It's happened for this year. And many CIOs and top technical leaders attend that, and there is a lot of compare and contrast in terms of where innovation sits for us as a state and as individual organizations. There's an innovation summit that happens a little bit later on in the next probably 6 weeks, I would say. And that's another opportunity for us to touch base. And it's really good for me to be able to talk to other CIOs of other organizations and have that compare and contrast in terms of what our approaches look like and whether or not there is a particular technology that is really daunting or is easily accepted and well used, and whether or not we can share notes, if you will, on how they are used. There are plenty of those discussions that happen at least twice a year, and I know that there's a third one that I'm forgetting right now. So yeah, we regularly get together, not just as CIOs, but as all leadership of technology. So folks from the technical ranks all the way up to CIOs and chief technology officers are in attendance at these events, and we have the opportunity to compare those notes.
And there's are there annual events or quarterly events where you're interacting with the private sector providers?
So in both of those instances, we have that opportunity. Many of the breakout sessions, and there's typically a vendor display floor where they will set up a booth, and if you have an existing relationship or product that we're using, it's a good opportunity to put faces and names and voices together. And other people obviously want their replacement technologies to be the replacement. So sometimes we find very interesting opportunities on that vendor floor as well.
I imagine so. Thank you. Well, now we have a report from Bob Silva, our Chief Administrative Services go-to person. So, so with that, please give us your report and thank you.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Good morning, board members, if it still is morning, I believe. Quick recruitment update. The last 30 days was consistent with the previous 30 days. We've welcomed 4 new support staff employees to the Los Angeles, Fresno, and Bay Area offices of appeals over the last 30 days. With support staffing levels beginning to get close to pretty much being in concert with ongoing workload levels, we're down to we have 9 pending support staff recruitments in field operations over 6 offices. We also have 2 administrative law judges separating this month, one due to retirement, one returning to private sector, and we will continue to closely monitor our teams of ALJs, our judges that we have both in the limited term appointment capacity as well as permanent full-time to ensure that those staffing levels continue to align with the workload. Quick procurement update. Some types of procurements and purchasing for the 24-25 fiscal year opened up this week. We are now able to write purchase order requests for larger orders of office supplies. The state CAL cards for the smaller ticket items haven't been released to us as of yet, but we expect that they will by the end of the month. And I sent word to all the CUIAB offices informing them that we can begin cutting purchase orders. I alerted the IT procurement staff member, but I think one could deduce from your earlier report that I neglected to directly message Chief Willoughby on this issue.
We're buying it.
But we'll meet after this meeting to see if the language service procurement you need is one that's currently available. So offices will not be able to purchase any large ticket items until the board adopts a budget for this fiscal year. A group of us is meeting with EDD's Fiscal Programs Division tomorrow to go over our budget allocations for both personal services and operating expenses. If we receive finalized allocations tomorrow or by the following week, our intention would then be to present the 24-25 budget to the board during the August board meeting. As previously reported, any budget adopted by the board will obviously need to be revisited and perhaps updated in the fall when Department of Finance begins working with departments on both the requirement to reduce expenditures by 8% and also to reduce position authority by permanently eliminating a portion of our vacant positions, which we expect to get instructions for that probably in late September. Lastly, language program update. Under the Dimely-Alatory Act, we are required to conduct a public contact language survey every 2 years to identify the language service needs for Californians. 2 days ago, we announced this to all of CUIAB management that we're doing a 2 consecutive week survey. The period will be July 22nd through August 2nd. So they've all received instructions and the frequently asked question package and tally sheets for this effort. And then once we get everything back from our public contact employees, we do a report that's due to California Department of Human Resources by October 1st of this year. And that is my report.
Thank you. I don't mean to sound zen or anything like that, but when I hear the word permanence, not much things in the world and reality are permanent. We live in an impermanent world, in my opinion.
I agree.
So, having had my
But
zen
that's what it said in the
moment,
budget
I'll
act,
turn it
so.
over to my vice chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Silva. I'm just wondering if you could revisit for me, it sounds like you said possibly you could assist with procurement of the software that Jefferson raised. I just wondered, is that something that
Yeah, it
you're
depends
thinking?
on the mechanism by which it needs to be requested. I'm not going to get into the weeds about all the different forms, but I think the method is a purchase order method, and that it's for a good as opposed to a service, and I think we can maybe start the process this week, because it did just open up.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's good news. And then you touched on retirements, and it just made me want to recognize a recently retired, I don't know if it's the ALJ that you mentioned, but someone who retired from appellate operations who we had the pleasure of working with as she wore some different hats in her many years here, but that's Judge Pointer. And when I started, I believe she came back as a retired annuitant and then was again permanent at AO. And I just wanted to recognize her for how wonderful it was to work alongside her, as we all did for many years, and wish her best in her retirement. So thank you.
Bring.
Chief Silva, thank you for the report. And perhaps you indicated that it was going to be presented in the future, but the governor announced certain positions were going to be frozen. I don't know why during the summer he would announce that, but there were a number of positions. Has that been made clear yet as far as the implications for our department?
The amount, no. The Department of Finance is tasked with working with agencies in the fall, I assume in September ahead of the October revise. We will receive instructions for both drills, both of the vacancy drill, the elimination of some vacant positions, and the reduction of expenditures as well. But we haven't received instructions on how to go about doing that as of yet.
And then, as far as you know, will any of the statewide ballot measures for November have any implications as far as our department moving forward?
I don't believe so, but I can't accurately say absolutely yes. I'd have to go back and review. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a tricky question because with ballot measures, it's always been unanticipated consequences, so, as we all well know. So,
I have no questions.
no question.
No tax questions either.
Well, thank you for your report. Thank you. Let's see here. I think that what I would ask our chief counsel is, no questions regarding Italy. I do wish you well on your vacation, well-earned vacation, but are there any matters for us to consider in closed session?
Thank you, Chair Allen. There are not.
Well, hearing that, I'm going to conclude this meeting. We're adjourned. Thank you.